right. So for this panel, we're going to be talking to 3 writers. May I present the novelist, Hanna Alkaf. Another novelist, Karina Bahrin. And also senior screenwriter, Yasmin Yaacob. I'm so pleased to be sharing the stage today with these ladies. Well, Hanna has written many young adult fiction books. And I did read the first one that came out, and I loved it very much, yeah, The Weight of Our Sky. I have not kept up with the rest of your books simply because there are so many books to read. Karina's book is another one, The Accidental Malay. Actually, she wrote this while we were living together in Langkawi, and I was very privileged to have seen some earlier drafts of it. Yes. And it has now turned into an award-winning book. So yeah, that's amazing. And Yasmin, whom I have known for years now, but only through emails. And very recently, Yasmin has written and worked on the series That Cover Girl, which is also a very popular series in Malaysia. And I would love to watch it. It is on Amazon Prime. I do not have Amazon Prime because it's a little difficult to be subscribing to like 10 platforms at once. But when I get the opportunity, I will surely do so. Okay, so today our panel is on reigniting the creative spark. And this is a topic that's very close to me because I myself, as a scriptwriter, at one point in my life, I felt that I was a script factory. I was just churning out script after script after script, and it just felt endless. And after a while, it felt like I could not anymore. And I felt like I was going through a creative wasteland. There was nothing there, nothing there. The well had run dry. Have any of you ever experienced something like this? Yes, Hanna.
Sure, I don't think there's any creative person who has a bottomless well of creativity. I'm pretty sure all of us have gone through some form of creative burnout, of writer's block, whatever you want to call it. Personally, for me, the worst burnout that I've ever felt was during the lockdowns, during the COVID lockdowns. I have 2 young children at home, and I was trying to give them some semblance of shape and structure to their day. I was trying to teach them when the schools hadn't figured out how online learning was going to go yet. I was trying to make sure they were occupied and happy and satisfied with what was going on at home, even though they had to be home. And at the same time, I was trying to run a movement, I'm not sure if anybody remembers, called Kita Jaga Kita. And I was on deadline for a book while all of that was happening. And so I was trying to go from teaching my daughter how to read to trying to get accommodations for frontliners who were being pulled from one place to another with nowhere to stay. And at the same time, I was meant to be writing this fun adventure book, which was a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood called Hamra and the Jungle of Memories. And so that was absolutely the most burnt out I've ever felt. That book was so painful to pull out of me at one point because I would sit down at the end of the day after the kids were asleep, and I'd done all these Zoom calls about, laptops and COVID centers and all sorts of things, and I would not be able to write a thing. There was nothing left of me to be creative. And pulling myself out of that was, let's just call it a struggle.
So this was several years ago.
This was during the height of the lockdowns, because there was a point where they just kept going. They locked us down, and then they locked us down some more and some more and some more. It just kept going. And so I had to keep pushing my deadline back, which, if you're someone like me, feels really terrible. Telling your editor, telling the people who are waiting on you, I can't do this right now, I can't produce anything right now. And that feels almost as bad as not being able to write the book itself. Like letting down the team that's waiting for you feels almost as bad as not being able to write.
Yeah, I can completely relate. What about Karina and Yasmin?
I'm not very disciplined. So I don't write for a living, unlike Hanna. I mean, Hanna is, a career author. I do it for fun. So for me, it's always play. And when I can't write, I walk away.
I suppose that mindset kind of like changes the whole thing, right? When you are writing for money and when you are writing for fun, it's
Absolutely.
completely different.
Yes.
Like for Yasmin as well. I mean, we are.
There's no time for that.
Yeah.
As you know, in screenwriting, I mean, just to explain to people, you literally have this deadline that you have to meet. People are waiting on your script. They're going to shoot, in 3 months, you have to get 6-8 scripts ready, 1 hour scripts ready. So there really is no time for that when you're actually working. But that said, I've been in this industry for a long time, since late 90s. So I've seen the growth and the slumps of the industry as well. So I think my slumps actually tally really well with the slumps of the industry. So I think there were times when, like you said, I'm feeling like I'm churning out stuff. I mean, one of the things that I did was the longest soap opera in Malaysia, Idaman, right? So, and Astana, I think one of the actresses is here, Sophia. But it was really long, and imagine, writing over 100+ scripts over a period of 4 or 5 months, right? So you really burn out, and then Malaysian industry as well, it had moments of, let's try something new, when we had Kopitiam and Spanajaya, and then it was like, well, did we get enough people to watch that? Probably not, let's just go back to what we had before, and then you go back to love stories and horror stories, right? So I think, those times were my slumps, because I felt like I was just churning them out, and I couldn't do that. It kind of literally made me feel sick. So I actually took long breaks. I would take 2-3 year breaks. Yeah, I would just leave and then come back. And at one point, I even went to Singapore to work there, because the Singapore government was very good at finding new topics for their shows, right? I mean, they actually injected things like, let's talk about mental illness, let's talk about, so that was interesting. It had its own challenges, but at least it was different subject matters. So those were my slumps, and I would literally just stop working.
But, on this subject, I actually don't think as writers, we're only writing when we're facing the page. You're actually writing when you're not as well. When you're away from the page and you're going through life and you're moving through the world and you're observing things, you're still writing in your head. So it's a matter of also how you look at it.
But as writers, we do constantly think about our ideas. We constantly do develop those stories in our heads. But sometimes getting from our heads onto the page, that is quite difficult.
Excruciating.
Especially when you're not feeling it. You're just not feeling it. For us script writers, I suppose in that sense, our work is more of crafting the story. It doesn't really matter the words that we choose to be in the script. Whereas for novelists, like every single word that you choose means something. And those things are important. So how do you manage to get something onto the page even when you're not feeling inspired?
I think the one option is to simply take some time away from the screen, which I have also done before. But sometimes you're not able to do that. Sometimes part of the job is you have to meet the deadlines. You have to get something on the page. And as a novelist, what you have to realize is that no book is built in the first draft. Right? Books are built in revisions, in edits. That's where the book actually comes out. That's where you carve out the book that you want it to be. And so your first draft, you must give yourself permission to write badly. You must give yourself permission to simply write nonsense. Sometimes your sentences are literally, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You just have to get it out of your head first, because a book is written when it's on the page, not when it's in your head. So you must give yourself permission and the forgiveness, for those of you who, like me, suffer from a little bit of perfectionism. You must give yourself permission and space and forgiveness to simply write badly and tell yourself you can make it better later. But you can't make something that doesn't exist better. It has to exist first.
Do you also do this? So for me, what's useful, at least when I'm drafting long form, is to, as you go through your journey, right? Like on a daily basis, you try and sit and write. But don't write till the tank is empty. So you come with your tank full, you know, energy's up, this and that. I write till halfway, maybe an hour, and then I stop, while I still know what's coming next. That way, when you come to it the next morning, you're not, you know, you start immediately. If you go till you're zero, the next day, habis lah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a trick that we have to like employ often. Like stop at a point where you're still excited about what's going to come next, so that when you get down to the page tomorrow, you know that you're going to be energized, you know you're excited, you know what's happening, and you're not staring at a blank page. And there's nothing more demoralizing than staring at the blinking cursor and not knowing what comes next. Nothing more demoralizing than that.
But also you go to technique for me when I can't. You know, there's two types of writing: technical, especially for script, and inspirational, where you are actually feeling it, you're in the zone with it, right? So when you're not in the zone, I just go back to technique, right? So, you know, what is supposed to be here in this act, you know, what's the plot point here? So, and then you just tell yourself that you're gonna get back into that zone, and then you go back through it. The other thing as well is that when I write, I always have a soundtrack to the show that I'm writing. So I'll pick a soundtrack, and because I think Murakami said that it's writing is mesmerization. So he does that in his running as well. So it puts you into the zone. So for me, I pick a song or music, and then when I hear that, it puts me into the zone. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, do you feel that other forms of creativity can feed your creativity when it comes to writing? Like, for instance, like for you, it's music. I know Karina watches a lot of shows, even though she is not a scriptwriter. She watches a lot of shows just so that, you know, it can feed her creativity. What other ways that you can recharge your creativity by channeling it into other areas? Like, what do? Do you guys paint? Do you guys cook? Do you guys garden?
My cooking is not an art form. I can tell you that much. My cooking cannot be considered an art form. Okay, it is purely sustenance. That's it. I do tend to make a lot of art. I find that because when I write, I'm inside my own head so much, sometimes the thoughts get very tangled. And especially if you're writing darker subject matter that involves a lot of immersive research, I do find that I need a way to get out of my own head. And so I enjoy making art, not to say I'm good at it, would never call myself an artist, but I enjoy making art because it gives my hands something to do. I'm focusing on lines on a page, I'm focusing on colors. And in that way, I'm so focused on what my hands are doing that I can't stay in my own head. And it helps me to detangle the thoughts that are in there and to sort of take myself out of myself.
That is so interesting. So you detangle thoughts by not thinking?
I can't
Makes
focus on the things that are going on up here. I need to quiet down the noise. And so I focus on what my hands are doing. And in that way, I'm not going over and over again the things that are already tangled up. And I find that once I've stopped and that breather that I have has allowed me to step back from the things that I'm enmeshed in and allowed me to figure out the threads more clearly. Yeah.
Do you find that this is your experience as well?
Yes, there was once when I was sort of blocked and I couldn't figure out how the plot was going to unfurl next. And I went for a swim. And by the time I was done with that, I knew how the book was going to end. So that happens. But I mean, on a broader scale, I also switch gears. So I run a community initiative with Lena Tan, I think she's here, called Suatu Kala, which teaches kids how to tell stories. And I do that. So over the last 3 years, we have actually produced actual theater, shows from scratch with kids. So doing that also helps because I'm not just writing, I'm also watching other people explore their creativity.
What about you, Yasmin? I think for us as professional writers, it's a little bit hard because sometimes I feel really guilty if I'm not in front of the computer writing, then what am I doing? So there's always that as well. I feel like doing something else, but I always have to grapple with the guilt of it.
I think when I was younger, I was always beating myself up like that. But as you get on, you don't take it that seriously anymore. So you do sort of, because it doesn't produce good work to pressure yourself like that. So I am a cat person, so I play with my cats a lot. And that kind of really relaxes me and just kind of like it's in the moment. It's like children, right? So they're just like in the present, so you just focus on that, and that's a lot of fun. And just laughing. Laughing really is a good thing. It just releases, a lot of the tangled thoughts.
Then also, I am constantly asking myself, so what I'm doing right now, am I recharging my creativity or am I actually, procrastinating on what I'm supposed to do? So there's that very fine line, right?
No, there's a thing. So what you do is you give yourself a list of, this is my procrastinating things, right? So mine is like Brad Pitt videos or something, right? And this is where I'm actually composting while I'm not doing anything, yeah. So then you don't feel so bad, you see?
Okay. How about you guys? Do you feel that sometimes your recharging turns into procrastination?
No, I'm always procrastinating. But I think it's positive because,
Just own
stuff's
it.
going on in your head. Like I say, if you're a writer, you're not just writing when you're on a page. There's things that are stewing in your subconscious, right? It's filtering, and that's okay. It's okay.
I think for me it is a little difficult because you do have to balance this creative fulfillment with the fact that this is my career now. I do have to produce by a deadline. I do have to do certain things according to deadline. But for me, I think after a period has passed of recharging activity, if I'm still putting off working on the book, then there is something there that I need to figure out. That is a sign to me that there's something about the book that is not working. And what is it that is stopping me from working on it? Because when I first start, I'm all fired up. I'm like, oh, this idea is great. I'm gonna tackle it to the best of my ability. I know exactly how it's going to go. But if I'm procrastinating on it, that's a sign to me that there's something fundamentally about the book itself that I need to go back and figure out what's wrong, because that's what the block is. And that's what I need to fix before I can move forward. And once I've done that, then I find that fire comes back. Like, I'm excited again. I know what to do again. Yeah.
That's a good point, actually, because for a lot of times it's like thematically it's not aligning, So like you're kind of going through and you love that character is doing X, but thematically it's not doing anything for the story. So then it kind of bumps you. So when you're bumping it, like in screenwriting, we talk about bumping. I'm bumping on that. So I'm bumping. Why are you bumping on that? Because the premise is this, but now you're here, right? So you've gone away from that. So that's a good point.
I think the other problem that we have is that as screenwriters, a lot of times we are not working on our own stories. Whereas for you novelists, you do work on your own stories. But for us, a lot of times it's other people's concepts, other people's stories that we then have to work out. And sometimes it's not like super duper interesting.
Can I just say though, so that we get some credit as screenwriters, that what happens is people come in with concepts. So anybody can have an idea, right? Anybody can say a balloon fell in love with a cactus and then something happens, right? But, that is just an idea. And we are the ones who flesh this out. Characters, themes, story arcs, what happens at 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And that in itself is an act of creation. So, and many times we get stories that are really meh. And you can't, and if you're people like us, you can't have math work, right? So you have to find what is the I call it the kernel, right? This little spark in there. You have to find, and we make that into a story. So I think that's what works for me. I can't actually, I literally can't write something that I don't think is interesting.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I think when I was feeling like I was a script factory, that I could not get that spark. Like even though the stories may have been interesting, they were not interesting to me. So how is it that, how can you find that fire, that interest, like I want to do this? A lot of times I don't want to be writing. I have to.
You write your own story lah.
That doesn't give me money.
See, our answers
Yeah,
are
so do
not
that
going
on
to
the
help
side,
you.
right? Write your own story on the side. No one's stopping you from doing that. Do the work that pays. So like me, I run a freaking hotel and a restaurant or whatever. That pays. Then I write for fun. For me, writing can never not be fun because that's my playground. It's my one thing I got. But for you, I mean, and I know how you feel because I was in public relations and I did write for 25 years, but it's just not fun writing that pay the bills. So I know how that feels. So then I turned to fiction on the side. So maybe you need to write something you actually like.
It's actually the bane of being a sought-out writer that you get work all the time. So you literally get work all. There's a small number of good writers in this country, so it's the same names, you know. So it's always you, and it's always you, and it's always you, right? So it's the same as me. So. And you don't want to let go of the opportunity. You know, it's a new producer. It potentially could go somewhere, so you do it. But I think and it's not easy to do your own stuff. It is not. I mean, producers want to make their own stuff. They don't make your stuff, right? So you have to, but I think you're at the stage where you can. I mean, I think there should be, this is your bread and butter. Yeah, and because otherwise you do burn out. I think you will burn out, and creatives have to do their own thing. But we also, as screenwriters, are very pragmatic beings, and it's just, it is what it is. I mean, it's a mafia like this. The industry's a bit like a mafia. You just go out and they pull you back, right? Go out. Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, so we're here talking to a bunch of women about creativity. I think one of the most important things you need to do is to give yourself permission. As women, there's a lot on our shoulders. You know, your mothers, you're caring for even your parents, et cetera, and your career women, et cetera. A lot of us don't give ourselves the permission to have that fun. And we need to do that. And sometimes that is what stops us from actually exploring our own creativity and our creative potential.
Well, I mean, there's the fun side of writing, but there's also the business side, kan? Which is like you're worrying about money, you're worrying about deadlines, you're also working with feedback that might not be what you want to hear. So how do you deal with that? Like I guess for us scriptwriters, we deal with feedback and deadlines a lot more. But that's also because, you know, we need to be dealing with those things in order to bill. Otherwise, you know, we don't get our next paycheck. But how do you deal with those things while also dealing with not having that spark, not having that surge of creativity to finish this project?
I mean, I used to be the person giving that feedback. I used to be an exec as well, so I also gave that feedback. And it's different, giving and receiving feedback as a writer is different to someone who's an exec giving it and not being a writer. But I think as a writer, and being on the other side as well, I kind of understand the 2 point of views. You know, people have jobs and their targets. But I think you have to be clear who is giving the feedback to you and what their capacity is, and be practical about that, because some people do not have the insight you have to script writing, and it's our job to educate them why, you know, you wrote it like that. And I think you say it in a more kind of like structured and practical approach, step by step. You have to educate people because scriptwriting is quite technical. Not many people understand that, yeah.
I think for me, actually, I do appreciate a certain structure being given to me when I'm working on a novel, because if left to my own devices and the whims and fancies of my inspiration as it comes and goes, then often the book will take so much longer to get done than it needs, than it should. But I think when it comes to accepting feedback, obviously I have editors, and at this point I have long-standing relationships with those editors, and so we understand each other very well. But I do think that if you are to become a professional author or career author, you do have to get used to the idea of accepting feedback and understanding that that feedback is meant to help you create the best book that you can. Having said that, when you first start out, you might feel that you have to accept every piece of feedback and every change that you're given because you feel you need to please the publisher. So one of the other things that I would say is that you must have a very strong idea of what the book that you want to create, the audience that you are writing for. Because sometimes, especially when you're working with Mat Saleh editors, they might not understand what it is you're trying to do, and you might have to take a very firm stance to explain yourself, to stand by your words and to stand by your concepts. So there is a line that you have to walk there between understanding what you want to do with the book and understanding that your editor is not your enemy and wants to help you make the book better. Yeah.
I think understanding that the editor is not your enemy and also understanding that the TV execs are not your enemy.
Yeah, but I know the idiotic comments that you get. I get it. I totally feel you. Yeah. But you just have to, I think if you believe in what you wrote is right, you just have to stick by it. And I've had to do that as well as a writer. Now I'm a writer, I'm not an exec anymore. You have to stick by it. And if you have the right points, generally they will defer to you. And you get your producer on board, you get your director on board, yeah. But yes, I know those idiotic comments.
Also, for me, as much as my life informs my writing in some ways, I wonder if writing also informs our life. Like, for us as writers, does writing help us to explore certain things in our lives, certain things in our journeys, our identities? Has that been true for you? Karina?
Writing is a form of exorcism. It is how I exorcise the things I don't like. At least, I mean, as women, you're always muted and muffled and told, no, sit down, behave. Hey, if I'm writing, you cannot do anything lah. I'm writing. And it's fiction anyway. Why you want to trust her so much? So it's my form of
anyway
exorcism.
is such a good blanket,
Yeah, it's
cover all
fiction
for
anyway.
anything you're right. You're like, it's just fiction.
Yeah. So, take it as you will. If you're offended, walk away. This is not primetime news. I'm not an essayist. But I think actually for women, I think writing is a very powerful weapon. Not a tool, but a weapon. And I'm using that word very intentionally. Because I think it can be used to talk about a lot of things that people don't want us to talk about. And it can be used to advance our perspective and our narratives that society is not prepared to hear.
And that's what you were doing in your book as well.
Yeah. A lot of exorcism. That was the exorcism of my whole life.
Do you feel that there are running threads in your work? Like for Hanna, for instance, you've written many books. Do you feel that there's a running thread throughout your work that's kind of reflective of your own exploration of life, your own exploration of your identity, etc.?
On the surface of it, it's hard to see the running thread because my books have gone like sort of all over the map. That's historical, there's horror, there's thriller, mystery, whatever, what have you. Because I am not one of those authors who are very smart and like built a brand in one genre. I just sort of went where the vibes took me. But I believe if you read any of my books, there is a thread of explorations of grief and loss in a lot of different ways, and of mental illness and mental health among young people specifically, among teenagers, among kids. And the reason that I do that is because when I write, I'm thinking of Malaysian teenagers, Malaysian children who didn't get to see themselves in the books that they were reading growing up, because I grew up reading in English in Malaysia, and all we had was Enid Blyton, Roald Dahl, all sorts of things where you never got to see yourself reflected in the page. So when I write, I'm thinking primarily of my kids, I'm thinking of Malaysian children. Selfishly, I'm thinking of things that I wish I had when I was a kid. And a lot of that thread of grief and loss and stuff comes through because I don't feel that we give our young people enough agency to properly feel and process their emotions. The tools to do that, the validation, the ability to sit with tough emotions and feel them through and come out to the other side. And so that's a theme that I feel runs through each of my books. In fact, one of my readers messaged me once and was like, it's not a Hanna Alkaf book if you don't try to make us cry, which is true. Your tears feed me, okay? So I think that's the main thread that runs through. On the surface, it's like, yes, they're Malaysian stories. It's always going to be set in Malaysia. It's Malaysian young people, and I want you to feel at home in those books. But the undercurrent of it is, how do you process these tough emotions? How can you help young people feel seen, feel heard, feel validated? And how do you help them find the way through the rough emotions to the other side?
What would you say would be the running thread of your works? Like, I know you have many works that have not been published.
Yeah, every time. It's because I don't know whether I'll have to leave the country or not after that. So I must find a way to be rich enough to leave the country to write some of the other stories that I want to write. Because, that's it.
Yeah. Censorship is something that I think is very familiar to us. There are so many things that we want to say. There are so many things that we want to explore, but it's just not possible. But actually, why do we keep doing what we do? Sometimes I don't understand.
We love it.
Tahan.
I've been writing since I was 6, so it's just secondhand to me, and I just can't imagine not doing it. And even whenever I get anybody else's story, I immediately want to see the story within that story. So it's just natural, comes natural. So I don't think I have any. In a way, script writing is quite suited to me because it's like the story that's important and not so much what I want to say. I mean, I always tell writers, the minute I hear you in talking through these characters, something's wrong. So, so for me, it's about the story. I just always love stories, yeah.
That is something that I bump into every now and again in my long writing career. I will ask myself, I will question myself from time to time, what is it that makes me keep doing what I do? Like, what is the magic of writing?
But it's the human condition that you're exploring, right, through it. So to me, it doesn't matter the story, whose story it is, right? You're looking at humanity. I think that is what is the payoff for me. So it could be like, I mean, that cover girl is about a hijabi girl in a scandal. It could go any way, that story, right? But she's a human being, and there's people around her who are affected by that. So to me, that's really interesting. That's an interesting exploration.
And what about for the two of you? Like, what is the magic of writing for you? Why do you write?
Because I have something to say.
Why do you say it in this particular way?
Because if I sang, you would leave the room. I always tell people my parents raised me to believe that whatever I want to do, just set my mind to it and just buat lah. Fail also tak apa, buat. So I tell my friends, thank God I didn't become singer, actor, ice skater, rock star, mampus you all. Mampus you all have to see, you know. At least I write book. You don't want to read, so never mind. So I write. But I mean, okay, in all seriousness, I'm a reader. I've always been a reader. Words are my thing. So that's how I express myself. But I do it because I have something to say, right? Or I saw this quote somewhere. Why do you write? And one of the things that was talked about was you write to revolutionize your pain. That's why I write.
That is so interesting.
That is why I write.
Okay.
Personally, these are some really excellent answers, by the way. Hate that I let myself go last for this one. Really just painted myself in the corner here. But personally, I write because I love stories. I love stories. I've always had a love for stories. I grew up surrounded by books. I grew up, alhamdulillah, with parents who were very much readers and still are. But what I realized also is if you don't if you don't contribute to the narrative, somebody is going to take that narrative from you, and they're going to do it poorly and in a way that you know does not reflect your realities. And so I write because I have something to say, and I don't want somebody who has no right to say it to profit off of it when they have no right to.
You need to write yourself into the conversation. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing.
Right. It is our form of taking a seat at the table.
Taking a seat at the table, taking your power back.
And it's not just about, at this point for me, it's not just about taking a seat at the table. It's about making sure there's space at the table for other women, other Malaysian authors, other Southeast Asian authors. It is just as important to be, I am not a person who enjoys being visible. Let me tell you, being up here, horrific. But if I don't do this, if I don't exist loudly in this space, if I don't start shoving elbows around, other people don't get to take a seat at the table too. So you have to be loud, you have to make space, you have to keep the space so that other people can come in, because it is no fun being alone at the table with a bunch of white people, let me tell you. It's not fun. If I have to exist, if I have to put myself in the spotlight in order for other people to be able to come up, then that's what I must do, even though I don't like it. You're all lovely people, I just don't like being in the spotlight.
But it's in our industry as well, I think it's important for more women to do this. It's a very male-skewed industry. So I think, I know I say don't put yourself in the story, but of course we do, right? But in terms of, you write up the female parts. I'm sure you do. So we will have a male lead, and then we'll be writing out the female part, right? Yeah. So that's really important to do, I think, as women writers. Yeah,
that is absolutely true. Just recently, I was doing this project, and one of my writers, who's a guy, there was that scene where this girl, her mom, who's a single mom, her mom is going to go out on a date. And her mom is a little bit nervous about going on the date and saying, I don't know, I don't know about this date, I'm not sure. And what my writer had done, what my male writer had done, was that the girl then says to her mother, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. Just see it as making a new friend. Whereas for me, if it were my mother going on a date, first thing is, you tell me where exactly, you give me your location and keep your live location, you tell your close friends where they are. So the viewpoint is so different. And sometimes I feel that if that viewpoint isn't out there, the male half would not understand our experience. They just don't know what it is to be women living in this world. Yeah, so that was one experience where I realized that it is very important for us as women to have our voices out there.
And I'm always, one of the least genres I like is romance, so I really hate writing romance. Because it's ruined generation of women, right? you know, this guy's going to save you and blah, 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 get married to her. So, so I'm always in my scripts, always veering away from that and veering away from histrionics, you know, shouting and screaming matches between couples and stuff like that. I actually get comments from viewers who like that stuff and tell me off that I didn't make them fight enough, right? So, yeah, that's part of me trying to change things a little bit, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. It's been so much fun having this conversation with you. But also, I really, really want to know, what are your next projects?
I already switched off my mic. I thought we were done. I just released my latest YA novel. It's called The Hysterical Girls of St. Bernadette's and is available outside. This is me doing my selling portion. I also have an anthology coming out next year that I edited that is for middle grade readers, so age 8 to 12, and it is short stories from Southeast Asian and diaspora authors, all centering mythical creatures from each Southeast Asian country, and it's going to be illustrated, and it is a dream project of mine. I'm very, very excited about that, so that's coming out next year.
Oh, can't wait, can't wait. Karina?
Ayo. No, I'm not very prolific. I'm actually trying to explore maybe doing something in TV at the moment. But yeah, not
Okay.
writing.
Look at Yasmin, look at Yasmin.
Need money.
Yasmin, what's your next project?
I've just completed a docudrama for Channel News Asia, and there's a movie coming out next year. And then I'm working on 2 women-centric series, so I don't know why I took on so much. So obviously, I'm not going to see anyone for the next 9 months.
And are you able to tell us the name of the film that's coming out?
It's Memory.
Ooh, okay, okay, really looking forward to that. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been really, really wonderful having you here, and also, I have to say, it's been helpful for myself personally, so thank you so much.